So you want to ski or board South America, but which country? Chile or Argentina? Well, I've been to both, and these are some tips I've identified that may help you decide. Both countries have multiple resorts. So for purposes of this comparison, I'm going to focus on the largest ones. That's Cerro Catedral in Argentina and Valle Nevado in Chile. So let's start with the first distinction, ease of getting to the resorts. If you're traveling to Cerro Catedral in Argentina from North America, Europe, or even Brazil, you have to fly first to Buenos Aires International Airport and then take a connecting flight to Bariloche, which is only 20 minutes outside Cerro Catedral. The problem is that those flights currently do not operate from Buenos Aires International Airport. You have to travel to the domestic airport, which can take about an hour and takes you through Buenos Aires. The flights from North America at least arrive early in the morning. You're likely going to be really tired, and then to have to take a transfer for an hour to another airport and then another flight, that can be kind of tedious. If instead you're going to Valle Nevado in Chile, you just need to fly to Santiago, and then it's about an hour and a half drive from there. Much more convenient and a little bit less expensive because you don't have to get a second flight.
Does Chile automatically win this comparison because Argentine resorts are much harder to access? Not necessarily, because your transfer through Buenos Aires could become a stopover. Take a day or two. Shop for something you can only find in Argentina. Experience life in Buenos Aires. Check out the street murals, which are everywhere. Tango, whether a formal performance or on the streets of Boca. And don't forget the food. One of my favorites was Don Julio's Steakhouse, some of the best steak I've ever had. Argentina is known for beef for a reason. But a stop off in Buenos Aires doesn't itself equalize the overall comparison, because while it's not needed to overcome travel inconvenience, don't sleep on a visit to Santiago, the house of Nobel Prize winning poet Pablo Neruda. Empanadas at Emporio Zunino. And Santiago has its own street art. Oh, and something you cannot find in Buenos Aires, wineries. Santiago sits in the heart of the Maipo wine region, so choose your winery and enjoy a glass or two of Chilean wine, or 3 or 4, and then shuttle back to your accommodations in Santiago. While a stopover is great, we're trying to ski or board South America, right? So how do you get to the mountains from the airport or city?
Once you get to the airport, either at Bariloche or at Santiago, you have a variety of options on how to get to the actual resort. There are some transfers that will take you up to Valle Nevado in Chile, and you can easily get a taxi to your accommodations in Bariloche or at Cerro Catedral itself. I chose to rent an SUV at both locations, and for some reason, the rental expense at Bariloche was so much higher than it was at Santiago, like 3 times the price. Keep in mind that if you're coming from North America or Europe to South America to ski or board, there's going to be a significant expense somewhere. So while airfares and rental prices change over time, whenever I've checked, it's always been that to get to ski resorts in Argentina is more time consuming and more expensive. Chile has been less expensive and more convenient. Let's break down the mountains themselves. Cerro Catedral in Argentina has 1,150 meters of vertical drop and 3,000 skiable acres. That compares to only 810 meters of vertical drop at Valle Nevado in Chile and 2,224 skiable acres. Right now, despite the statistics, Valle Nevado does not seem that big. It seems closer to a Mont Tremblant-sized mountain than to snowboard. The reason is they got dumped on with snow 3 weeks ago, 3 feet, but they haven't done anything since. And all of the terrain that goes into that skiable acreage, like this here and way up there, that snow's getting a little bit icy, thawing out and refreezing in the sun. It's really hard and crusty and actually icy. You can't really ski it, or at least I'm not going to ski it without all-terrain skis. So it's really limited right now to groomed slopes, which makes it much smaller than that actual skiable acreage. That's not to say the same thing doesn't happen at Cerro Catedral. Historically, there's been a bit of a drought in South America, and Cerro Catedral hasn't gotten snow most years all the way to the bottom. So you've had to take a lift up to the top when you ski or board. One question is, are there any other resorts nearby that you can also explore? For Cerro Catedral in Argentina, not quite. There is Cerro Castor, which is about an hour, 45 minutes away. I haven't been there, so I can't tell you what it's like. Definitely smaller than Cerro Catedral. And then there's also Cerro Chapelco, which is about a 3-hour drive away. Also not as big as Cerro Catedral, but if you're headed to Argentina for a week, I would definitely recommend taking a couple days to go check out Cerro Chapelco, just to get some more variety and see a different part of Patagonia. At Valle Nevado in Chile, there are 2 other resorts, El Colorado and La Parva, that are connected to Valle Nevado. So if you're open to buying a lift ticket for those resorts, you have now dramatically increased the amount of skiable terrain that you have. But here is the key. If you come to Valle Nevado and then add on day passes to La Parva and El Colorado, you're clearly blowing away the size of Cerro Catedral. Having these other 2 resorts connected to Valle Nevado, but not having one common pass, at least as far as I can see, is sort of a myth. That's the exact concept they have in Les Trois Vallées in France, which is 3 separate resorts, Miribel, Val Thorens, and Courchevel, all combined on one pass. From a marketing standpoint, if they did that, it would clearly be the largest resort in South America, and you'd have to add up all of the skiable acres to see how big it would be compared to other resorts in North America and Europe. Icon Pass. If you're headed to Valle Nevado in Chile, you can use your Icon Pass, assuming you have the right one. If you're headed to Cerro Catedral or anywhere in Argentina, or anywhere else in Chile for that matter, you can't. None of those resorts are on either Epic or Icon. Valle Nevado is the sole South American resort which is signed on for one of the passes, and it's Icon. So if you're already an Icon Pass holder, this is a check for Valle Nevado in Chile. If having a lot of dining options is really important to you, then you may want to lean more towards Cerro Catedral in Argentina, because there are so many different possibilities there. There are food trucks at the base, restaurants, there's actually a shopping mall that has restaurants at the base, and then there are options on the mountain. Valle Nevado in Chile really just has the one restaurant on the mountain, and then the options that are down at the hotels at the base. That's not a lot in comparison. Lifts are an important distinguishing feature. At Valle Nevado, half of them are either button lifts like I'm on right now, or a T-bar. The rest are chair lifts. Cerro Catedral is predominantly chair lifts. There are some T-bars, but they're mainly down at the beginner level. If you want to be up on the mountain, it's all lift. They may be slow, but you have plenty of chair lifts to choose from. Oh, and there's more. Some of the button lifts at Valle Nevado have a bit of a kick to them at the beginning. They attach individually as the skiers and boarders come to the lift. The attendant will hand you the button, ask you if you're ready, and then attach it to the wire. And sometimes there's a bit of a jolt, so you gotta prepare yourself for that. Let's talk about the bases at both resorts. Valle Nevado is right behind me. The base of Valle Nevado is pretty small, as you can see. It's just this collection of hotels and rental apartment buildings. That's it. Everything you're going to get is right in this concentrated area. You're really isolated up on the mountain. Cerro Catedral, on the other hand, is not that isolated. It's located near a town which is large enough to have its own airport, Bariloche, just a less isolated feel. If you're headed to Valle Nevado in Chile, where do you stay? It's really just here, one of these hotels or apartment rentals. That's it. Very simple. The hotels are ideally situated for skiing because they're right in the prime spot. You just walk out of the hotels and you can ski down to the slopes. If you are staying at one of the rental apartments like I am, there's a parking lot. You're on the far side or you're on the near side. And all you need to do is walk over here. As long as there's sufficient snow, it's like it's ski in and ski out. Cerro Catedral in Argentina has a lot more in terms of accommodations. You can stay in Bariloche, which has hotels, rental apartments, hostels, whatever else you can find. And then you could also choose to stay up at the resort of Cerro Catedral. There are some accommodations there, but one thing that I observed is that not a lot of them are really ski in, ski out. I saw a lot of people walking what seemed like a long distance to get to the base of the mountain from their accommodations. There definitely are some that are right at the base of the mountain by the lifts, but it seems like a lot are not. Nightlife at Valle Nevado in Chile. When you consider how small the base area is and how isolated up in the mountains it is, it's not hard to understand that nightlife is pretty limited. There are a few options in the hotels, but outside of that, you're going to be limited to spending time with the people you came with or anybody you met on the slopes or at a hotel. For Cerro Catedral in Argentina, however, there are so many options, mainly because you have Bariloche at your disposal. Restaurants, bars, movie theaters, you name it. So if that's an important factor to you, give that one to Cerro Catedral in Argentina. Let's talk about the views. You can't go wrong in either country. Here at Valle Nevado in Chile, if you're looking east, you have this great rugged landscape. It's an incredible view from your apartment if you're renting one or from the hotels. If you look the other direction towards the west, you have great sunsets every night. Up on the mountain, you continue to see really rugged mountain peaks. It's just totally beautiful. At Cerro Catedral, on the other hand, you have an added element, lakes. including Lago Gutierrez and Lago Noalhuapi. Views of those lakes among the snow-covered jagged mountains is unbeatable itself. So it's really a question of what type of scenery you want to be surrounded by when you're skiing or snowboarding.
Chasing the beams, what you do, don't let go. Chasing the beams.